Krishna. So, welcome back to 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is especially termed as Purushottam Yoga, and we have been discussing in this chapter about one special banyan tree. So, in the 15.1 verse, when we started, we discussed about one special banyan tree, which Srila Prabhupada says, if one very carefully understands this banyan tree, he will come close to liberation. His liberation is guaranteed, Srila Prabhupada mentions there. So, and Srila Prabhupada said one should analytically study. Now, sometimes we find, so what is this? This tree is called as Ashwatha tree. Ashwatha, like we say, no? Urdhvamulam adaha shakam ashwatham aprahuravyayam. So, Ashwatha. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he gives a very beautiful meaning of word Ashwatha. So sometimes Ashwatha is referred to banyan tree, like as per means what we know as Ashwatha. So in Sanskrit, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur decodes this word Ashwatha. Why Ashwatha is called as Ashwatha? So Shwa, the meaning of Shwa. Shwa means like we know. What meaning we know of Shwa? Anyone knows? You might have heard some meaning of Shwa before also. Shwa. Ahobata swa pachato gariyan. Or shwa, dog.
Dog. Dog.
Yes. So shwa means dog. And shwa also means tomorrow. This is not shwa, this is swa. So he said the swa. Swa also means tomorrow. Tomorrow and ashwa. Ashwa means that which not tomorrow. Means shwa is tomorrow, and ashwa is not tomorrow. And stha means situated. Stha means stay. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur grammatically modifies this word, and he says that Ashwatham, the meaning of word Ashwatham means that which will not exist tomorrow. So he said something which is not going to exist tomorrow is called as Ashwatha. So this is the definition he gives for Ashwatha. So it is here today and gone tomorrow. So material world is called as Ashwatham, not existing tomorrow. Now someone may say, Acha, is it not going to exist tomorrow? Yeah. For both kinds of people, it is not going to exist. Which both kinds of people? Both for devotees, it is not going to exist. And even for non-devotees, it is not going to exist. Now, how is it that for non-devotees, it is not going to exist? Very simple. Non-devotees will go back home back to for devotees, it is not going to exist. Like devotees are going to practice Krishna consciousness, they are going to perfect their life, and they will be liberated tomorrow, and they will go back home back to Godhead. So it is understood, okay, this material world is not going to exist tomorrow for the pure devotees of Lord. Now somebody may question, okay, Prabhu, for pure devotees, I understand, but what for about not so pure devotee? Or what about not a devotee only? Somebody who is not a devotee, then is it material world is going to stop or it is not going to stop? So then why this material world is called as not going to exist tomorrow? So he says one very beautiful thing. He says material world, why it is said it is not going to exist tomorrow, the reason is the attachments which we are attached to in the material world, they are not going to exist tomorrow. Whatever we are attached today to, he said that is going to stop. Whatever we feel most attached to today, that is going to cease tomorrow. No one can carry to continue his attachments. So either become detached willingly, or one will be forced to become detached sooner or later. Like sometimes somebody is a very overeater. He understands that Prabhu overeating is very dangerous. So many times he has heard in the lectures. So many times he has his own experience, and still he continues to overeat and falls traps to all this sense gratification. So I now he may say, "Ki, Prabhu, what to do? I'm very attached to eating." Okay, either you hear a good advice of doctor or hear a good advice of devotees and live it, or if not, tomorrow you are attached to, you will be forced to do that. You will be forced to do that because maybe some medical challenge may come and some other issue may come. So whatever attachments which we are attached to today, they will cease to exist tomorrow. But this attachments will now, then it is said, okay, Prabhu, then it is now, if it is temporary only, then how does it matter? No, but it is avyayam. Material world, everything is temporary, but it is eternal, avyayam. It is going to continue. So that means the new sets of attachments will be created. It is not that disattachments, like if I am attached to some particular person today, say materially attached to some particular person today, then that person is going to see, that person is either going to leave me or that person is going to disappear. Then, but now you may say attachment is gone. No, attachment, like this attachment to this material world will be, this person will be gone, but now another set of attachment will come. That is why it is called as ashwatha. It is called as so that's why the material world, it is said the material world, the banyan tree, this banyan tree is not going to exist tomorrow, neither for devotees, for non devotees also, because everything they are attached to is going to cease to exist. So this is the meaning of, I think that time last class I could not discuss about this one particular word, ashwatha and avyayam. Avyayam means this is going to be eternal. This tree is eternal. So now we were discussing about how there are different branches in this tree. There are different branches, and what these branches are compared to. These branches are compared to different material bodies a person gets, and based on the kind of material body he gets, he develops particular kinds of sense organs. He gets different sense organs, like a fish. If somebody is getting a fish body, then he will get gills to breathe oxygen. Somebody is getting human, then he will get nose and other different ways of different sense organ he gets. And now, what influences, so what kind of sense objects is going to get attracted to is based on the combination of modes. What kind of water he is going to provide to that tree. So if he is going to provide a mode of passion, mode of goodness, mode of ignorance, based on a kind of a particular kind of a mode, a person is attracted to different kinds of sense objects. So which mode we have cultivated in our life? Tamoguna person is attracted to a tamoguni food. So we're discussing about, so all these branches are compared to different material bodies. Now in the third and fourth shloka, when we started, uh, we discussed about, now philosophers, they have different their opinions about the world. Some people say material world is real. Some people say material world is not real. You see, so many organizations have come up now. Like there is Brahma Kumaris and there are this organization and that organization. So many different organizations are coming. And everyone claims that their philosophy is the best philosophy. And they know the reality. They know the reality only. Now, how to understand? Because every organization says this way only, that actually our philosophy is the best philosophy, and what others say that their knowledge is incomplete. That is the way they say. So why does this contradiction appears? Because nobody is able to understand the nature of this world only. The nature, some people say the world is real, some people say the world is false only, some people say the world is eternal. So how to understand? That's why Krishna declares in this third and fourth verse, he says, the real form of this tree cannot be perceived in in this world. He said, the real tree does not exist at all here in this world. He says, out of ignorance, um, and we are unable out of our ignorance to cut down the banyan tree of this material world. So neither we are able to cut down. So he said, this material world ka tree, it cannot be pulled down. We cannot push it and pull down. It has to be cut down. It has to be cut down because the tree has become so strong now. If it is like a very thin creeper, we can just walk upon that creeper, and that will break down. But this tree has become very deep rooted, and this tree has become very strong. Now something becomes very strong, you cannot just push it down like that or pull it down. Now what has to be done? It has to be cut down. So to cut down this tree, there is a need of a weapon. And what this weapon is compared to? This weapon, it is said, in the third shloka, it said, Su Viruda Moolam. Viruda, you cannot uproot it like this. It has to be cut down. So there is a need of an axe. There is a need of a kulhadi to cut down this tree. And what this kulhadi is made up of? This kulhadi is made up of detachment and renunciation. So he said one has to develop this detachment and renunciation. So detachment. I don't know what is difference between detachment and renunciation. Okay, we'll consider it later. Now, how to sharpen this axe, because time to time, the axe is going to become little blunt. It is not going to remain sharp. So now how to sharpen this axe? So that it is said, Vishnu Thakur writes there that this axe is sharpened by two things. One is knowledge and another is discrimination. So we have to regularly put our endeavor to develop this knowledge and renunciation. Sorry, knowledge and discrimination. These two things sharpens the axe of detachment. And then we can cut down this tree of material world, which is causing us to run again and again towards sense gratification. Now we are coming to the next section. I think last class we discussed till fifth shloka, na Prabhu? Nirmana Moha.
Yes, Prajit. 5 shlokas were done.
Yeah. So this entire chapter has total 20 shlokas only. One of the best chapters for memorization. All shlokas are like generally very helpful. So you might have read in the earlier one of the chapters, there was Chatur Shloki Bhagavad Gita which comes. Anyone knows which chapter and which shlokas you came across Chatur Shloki Bhagavad Gita?
10.8 to 10.11.
10.8 to 10.
Yeah. So now, so entire Bhagavad Gita is in 4 verses. Now this chapter is going to be much more special. In this chapter, entire Bhagavad Gita will come in just 3 verses. 3 shloki Bhagavad Gita. So 3 shloki Bhagavad Gita is going to come at the end of this chapter. So even in case if you do not understand the entire chapter and if you do not understand many other things, you can just remember this 3 shloki Bhagavad Gita. So that is going to be the last verses of this chapter, 18, 19, and 20. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. These are like considered to be 3 shlokas of Bhagavad Gita. So they are going to concept basically 17, 18, 19. That 18, 19, 20. This shloka are 3 shloki Bhagavad Gita of entire summary of Bhagavad Gita. So now we are coming to the next section where first section discussed about first 5 verses discussed about how to become detached from material world. Now 15.6 onwards, we are going to discuss this in how to transmig. What is the process of transmigration? How transmigration takes place, and how all living entities are part and parcel of Krishna, and how still they are transmigrating from one body to another body in search of a pleasure. So he said, people are leaving body one after another. So many people are living. Only devotees can realize this. That only devotees understand that I'm living. I'm actually we are changing the body. Materialist people are blind and they cannot see the reality. So the next 6 shlokas from 15.6 to 15.11. So 15.6 to 15.11, they discuss about transmigration, how the transmigration process takes place. So let's come to 15.6. So very famous shloka. I think all of you might have memorized also the shloka. Very famous shloka of Gita. Okay, let's come. न तद्भाष्यते सूर्यो न शशांको न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते Tadhama paramam mama. Yes, bro. Someone can please read.
Aradhan Prabhu.
Yes, bro. That supreme abode of mind is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. Should I continue, Guruji?
Yes.
Purport. The spiritual world, the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, which is known as Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan, is described here. In the spiritual sky, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, fire, or electricity because all the planets are self luminous. We have only one planet in this universe, the sun, which is self luminous. But all the planets in the spiritual sky are self luminous. The shining effulgence of all those planets, called Vaikunthas, constitute the shining sky known as the Brahmajyoti. Actually, the effulgence is emanating from the planet of Krishna, Goloka Vrindavan. Part of that shining effulgence is covered by the Mahatattva, the material world. Other than this, the major portion of the shining sky is full of spiritual planets, which are called Vaikunthas, chief of which is Goloka Vrindavan. As long as a living entity is in this dark material world, he is in conditional life. But as soon as he reaches the spiritual sky, by cutting through the false, perverted tree of this material world, he becomes liberated. Then there is no chance of his coming back here. In his conditional life, the living entity considers himself to be lord of this material world. But in his liberated state, he enters into the spiritual kingdom and becomes an associate of the Supreme Lord. There he enjoys eternal bliss, eternal life, and full knowledge. One should be captivated by this information. He should desire to transfer himself to that eternal world and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. For one who is too much attached to world and extract it to this material world, it is very difficult to cut that attachment. But if he takes to Krishna consciousness, there is chance of gradually becoming detached. One has to associate himself with devotees, those who are in Krishna consciousness. One should search out a society dedicated to Krishna consciousness and learn how to discharge devotional service. In this way, he can cut off his attachment to the material world. One cannot become detached from the attraction of the material world simply by dressing himself in a saffron cloth. He must become attached to the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, one should take it very seriously that devotional service, as described in the 12th chapter, is only way to get out of this false representation of real tree. In chapter 14, the contamination of all kind of process by material nature is described. Only devotional service is described as purely transcendental. The word paramam mama are very important here. Actually, every nook and corner in this proper is the property of the Supreme Lord. But the spiritual world is paramam, full of six occurrences. The Katha Upanishad 2:15 also confirms this. In the spiritual world, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra tara kama. For the whole spiritual sky is illuminated by eternal potency of the Supreme Lord. The supreme abode can be achieved only by surrender and by no other means.
Yes, bro. So in the last shloka, 15.5, Krishna mentioned about the process of surrendering. He mentioned about nirmana moha, jisasanga dosha, adhyatma nitya, nivritta kama. So he mentioned about the process of surrendering, because a lot of time this surrender, this word is being asked. So he gave information about process of surrender. Now, in this shloka, Krishna mentions about what is the result of surrender. What is the result? Like, and so Prabhupada is very beautifully mentioning in the purport here in the sixth shloka that generally we are able to give up something lower when we get something higher. Like a child. A child is able to give up a balloon if he gets a toy, teddy bear. He is able to give up a teddy bear if he gets some toy. He's able to give up a toy if he gets a bicycle. If he is able to give up a bicycle, only if he gets a video game. Like if when we find when we are getting something higher, then to give up something lower becomes very, very easy. We don't have to force a person to give up something lower. So Krishna in the sixth shloka here, because he's talking about detachment and all, so he said, first of all, I would like to tell you what is a special thing which is waiting for you. Like a person, nowadays there is a big culture of in IT of switching. Like people switch jobs very quickly. People switch the jobs from one job to another job. So when do people switch the jobs? When there is a better prospects available there. हमारा भविष्य उज्जवल है. Future भविष्य उज्जवल है. Like sometimes when in Prashad I'm serving also na. Like yesterday there was nursing chaturdashi. So sometimes प्रसादम सर करते करते डर लगता है. अरे मुझे नहीं मिला तो मेरा खत्म हो गया तो प्रसाद. लेकिन पहले ही प्लेट बना के रखा है और एक्स्ट्रा महाप्रसाद है. जिन लोगों ने सर्विंग किया है उन लोगों के लिए एक्स्ट्रा महाप्रसाद है. तो पहले से पता है. तो हम बोलते हैं अरे भविष्य मेरा उज्जवल है प्रभु, टेंशन नहीं है, कितना भी सर्व करो. So we are able to give up this we are able to give up this attachment when we have something higher prospectus available. Just a minute, bro. Some kirtan is coming here. So we are able to give up this when there is a higher benefit available. So in this shloka, Prabhupada is writing very beautifully, sixth shloka. Prabhupada is telling one should be captivated by this information. One should become very attracted by this information. That what is a place which is waiting for me if I do these things. Like people study very hard for JE examinations. So much. I remember from 7th standard, 8th standard, or nowadays 5th standard only people start joining JE. Entire packages there from 5th standard to 12th standard till JE. There is an entire package. Coaching classes are opening nowadays. That from and they make want to make people ready for JE and NEET and all these examinations. So much hard work a person does because he feels that the future and bhavishya is going to be very ujjwal. But those who have already become engineers and those who already got job, they understand what kind of ujjwal bhavishya is. So people work very hard when the bhavishya is ujjwal. So Krishna wants to attract the mind of devotees here, mind of the people. That we only know the planet. We are only aware of the uh, place where only one sun is there. But he said, Krishna says there is one place which is self-luminous. There is no need of sun only there. Now somebody say, how can some planet be alive? Somebody can be alive without sun. So he said, no, in Vaikuntha, the light comes from a Brahma Jyoti. And he says, there is a beautiful planet that is Goloka Vrindavan. So he's giving the information. And Prabhupada also says, be captivated by this information. So yesterday, His Grace Harisham in Bhagavatam class was mentioning, sometimes we may discuss very theoretically about three modes and detachment and this and that and analytics and all. And even sometimes, despite of hearing so much, I guess even myself or a speaker himself, next 5 minutes, he may get attracted by some modes and he may come under the influence of modes and he may say, so it is like we may speak big, big things, but we are only trapped by the modes. Very difficult. So, how many of an experience that you have given a presentation about how to overcome some kind of difficulties and how to overcome Maya against some presentation, and immediately that day only you felt attract to Maya. You have some experience? You can raise your hands if you have experience. You agree with me? So, yes, I think everyone, no one is an exception, including myself, anyone. So, we find that so Radheshamruji is mentioning little devotional experience is far more better than tons and tons of this knowledge. Like this knowledge, so that's why the essence of Bhagavad Gita is this only, render devotional service. So it said the little devotional experience can surpass much, 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 much even the jnana part which is there. Little devotional experience. So if we just get this little devotional experience, the higher taste which comes by devotion, rendering devotional service, he says this is far, far, far better. Today in the morning, when there was one where we started Japa talk in the morning. So in Japa talk, there was discussion from book called as The Living Name. Some of you might have read this book. Anyone has read this book, The Living Name? Okay, Mandar Prabhu has
Little bit, little bit.
Mandar Prabhu has read. So, in case those of you who have not read, even myself, I'm not read completely. I'm starting to read now. So, I would really, the Maharaj in the first chapter, the introduction chapter only, there he writes. He says that many times it happens with people that initial enthusiasm which was there in our Krishna consciousness that has disappeared now. Earlier, there was great joy, great thrill in practice of Krishna consciousness. Every activity appeared to be wow, so wonderful. But over the due course of time, it appears that the joy and the charm which was there before is now little reducing in day by day. Why is it happening like that? Like sometimes, and we are not finding the greater joy, and then we are trying to find happiness through some alternative means, through material means. Like प्रभु भक्ति में तो आनंद आ नहीं रहा है, कुछ तो मटेरियल चीजें से आनंद लेना चाहिए, तो पोस्ट पोजीशन में आनंद आना चाहिए, बाद में पोस्ट पोजीशन से भी आनंद आना चला गया, बाद में चलो कोई कुछ प्रसाद से आनंद लेते हैं, प्रसाद बाकी भक्ति में और तो कोई आनंद आ नहीं रहा है, प्रसाद से आनंद लेते हैं, कुछ समय बाद प्रसाद से आनंद भी आना बंद हो गया है, कुछ तो कोई नेम फेम ग्लोरी से आनंद मिलेगा, क्योंकि नेम फेम ग्लोरी से भी आनंद आना बंद हो गया है, तो कुछ तो ढूंढता है वो कि मुझे कुछ तो आनंद आना चाहिए जीवन में, क्योंकि अल्टीमेटली आनंद चाहिए जीवन में, और आनंद बंद हो गया है तो फिर ऐसा लगता है बोर हो रहा है अभी भक्ति में थोड़ा, पहले सब कुछ पता चल गया है अभी भक्ति में. This may come over the due course of time in the life of a sadhaka. So he mentions, like in cricket match, one there is one very formula in cricket match. Like I remember this formula, Sachin Tendulkar had this formula. So those of you who have seen cricket, you may get reminded of those days. In our childhood, when we used to watch cricket, there was sometimes Sachin Tendulkar had good times and Sachin Tendulkar had bad times in his cricket. There were certain times in cricket that he used to go on duck only, like certain 3 or 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. Sometimes he will just go on duck. Duck, you understand? Huh? Duck means zero, means just few runs only, few runs, and below 10 only will get out, like that. Then we call it basically what? The cricketer is not in the form. We say ना, अरे फॉर्म में नहीं है क्रिकेटर आज, लगता है थोड़ा उसका लो टाइम चल रहा है जीवन का. So सचिन तेंदुलकर बोलता था, means he used to say that time, कि whenever you are out of form, when you are finding that continuously you are going out of form, out of form, out of form, हरी बोल हो रहा है बार 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 बार. He said there is one formula. He said, what is the mantra? You have to remember BTB. That is called as BTB, back to basics, back to basics, jump back to basics. So he said, whenever, so similarly we say this, like they again go and they again do net practice, then again do practice and mock rehearsal and everything we have to do again. So similarly, in a life of devotee, the situation comes. Thus, we are going out of form. Japa is going down, sadhana is going down, all anarthas are popping out at one moment. Adhyatmik klesh, Adi Devi klesh, Adi Bhautik klesh, all are coming together only, and there is a great struggle. So then it is said, jump back to basics. What is that basics? So Maharaj says that many devotees fail to recognize that the dissatisfaction they are getting in their life is primarily because they are not connecting with the holy name properly. He says still they are doing broken names. Broken names means broken. Broken names means you understand what are our broken names. We every day do broken holy names. So he said many sadhakas fail to recognize that the dissatisfaction in their life is not because of something missing externally. He said it is not because something external commodity is missing in their life. That is mainly because they are not connecting with the holy names very properly. Like we all of us have an experience that sometimes the japa is really wow experience in spiritual life. Wow, Prabhu, the japa was today ecstatic. It was so wow experience, but it doesn't continue every day. Another day only, it doesn't continue only. Means we may not get that experience again, and we are longing for that experience again and again, and we are not able to get that experience again. So he says, you have to learn to practice this living holy name. You have to chant the living name. The name is living. Connect with the holy name. And when we connect, when we are getting this pleasure, spiritual pleasure very properly, then all other external pleasures which are troubling a sadhaka, they will disappear. So he said, we have to learn to get pleasure, derive pleasure in glorifications of the spiritual and holy name and fame and pastimes of the Lord. And if it is this activity is done properly, the person will not be attracted by artificial. So that's why here you find in this shloka, there is a mention about 15.6. Prabhupada is mentioning one should become one. He says one must become attached to devotional service of Lord. And it is said it is not that one becomes detached by just changing the dress or wearing a saffron cloth. One must detach. So Prabhupada says very nicely, huh? Prabhupada's English is so good. Every nook and corner is the property of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nook and corner. Like हम बोलते हैं ना सब भूमि गोपाल की. We say every entire world is property of like हमारे बाप की. बोलते हैं ना किस बाप हमारे बाप कौन है? That is our बाप is Lord Krishna. So हमारे बाप का property है सब कुछ. So every nook and corner is the property of Supreme Lord. And so now Krishna is describing here that, so brief description of spiritual world here basically he is giving. And when we become attracted to this description of spiritual world, our samsara will stop. The cycle of samsara will reduce. So this is the sixth shloka. I'll after a few shlokas I'll come to some PPT of Radheshyam Prabhu also. Let's continue for some few more verses. Seventh shloka. So here now, so sixth shloka basically described about what is the result a person gets after surrender. And now seventh shloka onwards is describing more detailed way how transmigration is happening. So 7 to I think 11, no? 7 to 11 will describe about the process of transmigration or the change of the bodies. Very famous shloka. And this shloka is going to come in your shloka test. So please recite it and please memorize it. ममैवांशो जीवलोके जीवभूत सनातनः मनः षष्ठानीन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षति ममैवंशो.
Awesome.
So he said mama amsha. Everyone is my amsha, my fragmental part. Jivaloke. Jivaloke. Loke. So in the world of a conditional life. And he says smanaha sashtani indriyani. So such a person is struggling with senses, six senses, especially the mind. And so he says the mind is the root cause of change of bodies. All six senses are there, but most of the struggle is with the mind. And his struggle, the great struggle is there for a living entity. So Krishna knows our problem. Sometimes we really feel, does Krishna really know my problem? Does Krishna really understand what all struggles I am going as a sadhaka? So Krishna is already telling, Prabhu, I know what all struggles everyone is going in this material world. Any living entity who is conditioned, he says he's undergoing these troubles in the material world. So please read translation and purport.
Arjun Sarthi Prabhu.
Excellent. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. Purport. In this verse, the identity of the living being is clearly given. The living entity is the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord eternally. It is not that he assumes individuality in his conditional life and in his liberated state becomes one with the Supreme Lord. He is eternally fragmented. It is clearly said, Sanatana. According to the Vedic version, the Supreme Lord manifests and expands himself in innumerable expansions, of which the primary expansions are called Vishnu Tattva, and the secondary expansions are called the living entities. In other words, the Vishnu Tattva is personal expansion, and the living entities are the separated expansions. By his personal expansion, he is manifested in various forms like Lord Rama, Narasimhadev, Krishnamurti, and all the predominating deities in the Vaikuntha planets. The separated expansions, the living entities, are eternally servitors. The personal expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the individual identities of the Godhead, are always present. Similarly, the separated expansions of the living entities have their identities. As fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, the living entities also have fragmental portions of His qualities, of which independence is one. Every living entity, as an individual soul, has his personal individuality and a minute form of independence. By misuse of that independence, one becomes a conditioned soul, and by proper use of independence, he is always liberated. In either case, he is qualitatively eternal as the Supreme Lord is. In his liberated state, he is freed from this material condition and he is under the engagement of transcendental service unto the Lord. In his conditional in his conditioned life, he is dominated by the material modes of nature and he forgets the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As a result, he has to struggle very hard to maintain his existence in the material world. The living entities, not only human beings and the cats and dogs, but even the greater controllers of the material world, Brahma, Lord Shiva, and even Vishnu, are all parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. They are all eternal, not temporary manifestations. The word Karshati, struggling or grappling hard, is very significant. The conditioned soul is bound up as though shackled by iron chains. He is bound up by the false ego, and the mind is the chief agent which is driving him in this material existence. When the mind is in the mode of goodness, his activities are good. When the mind is in the mode of passion, his activities are troublesome. And when the mind is in the mode of ignorance, he travels in the lower spaces of life. It is clear, however, in this verse that the conditioned soul is covered by the material body, which is the mind and the senses, and when he is liberated, this material covering perishes, but his spiritual body manifests itself in its individual capacity. The following information is there in the Madhya Madhya Dinarayana Shruti. स वै एष ब्रह्मनिष्ठ इदं शरीरं मर्त्यम् अतिसृज्य ब्रह्मभीषा भीषमपाद्य ब्रह्मणा पश्यति ब्राह्मण शृणोति ब्रह्मणैवेद्यं सर्वम् अनुभवति. It is stated here that when a living entity gives up this material embodiment and enters into the spiritual world, he revives his spiritual body. And in his spiritual body, he can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. He can hear and speak to him face to face. And he can understand the Supreme Personality as he is. From Smriti, also it is understood Vasanti Yatra Purusha Sarve Vaikuntha Murtaya. In the spiritual planets, everyone lives in bodies featured like a Supreme Personality of Godheads. As far as bodily construction is concerned, there is no difference between the part and parcel living entities and the expansion of Vishnumurti. In other words, at liberation, the living entity gets a spiritual body by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The words Mamai fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also very significant. The fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord is not like some material broken part. We have already understood in the second chapter that the spirit cannot be cut into pieces. The fragment is not materially conceived. It is like it is not like matter which can be cut into pieces and joined together again. That conception is not applicable here because the Sanskrit word Sanatana is used. The fragmental portion is eternal. It is also stated in the beginning of the second chapter that in each and every individual body, the fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord is present. Dehi nasmin yatha dehe. That fragmental portion, when liberated from the bodily entanglement, revives its original spiritual body in the spiritual sky, in a spiritual planet, and enjoys association with the Supreme Lord. It is, however, understood here that the living entity, being the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is qualitatively one with the Lord, just as the parts and parcels of gold are also gold.
So this entire shloka, the verses 7, 8, and 9, they speak about how mind has a power to determine the future of Jiva. So it is बोलते हैं ना, आपका जीवन आपके हाथ में. तूच आहे तुझ्या जीवनाचा शिल्पकार. Sometimes some philosophers speak like, no, तूच आहे तुझ्या जीवनाचा शिल्पकार. They speak. So you are only the carver of your destiny. So I said the mind has power to determine the future of Jiva. So it is mind, what state of mind we are in, we can decide our future. So in this chapter, in this 15.7, there are certain very vital points in the purports which we find. So Prabhupada speaks about, or Krishna tells about what is our original position. So Krishna said, living entities are eternally part and parcel of Krishna. This is, and we belong to spiritual world. This is our eternal position. Now, second, what is our current position? So, original position is this, and current position is we are struggling hard with mind and senses in the world. That is our current position. So, there are different focus of learning here, which he mentions that what is the identity of a living entity? That the living entity is Sanatana, and he also basically this is also refutation against Mayavad philosophy, that it is not that Jiva becomes one with God after after liberation. So this also refutes Mayavad. And how because of misuse of independence, one is getting conditioned. This also Prabhupada mentioned. And the word of karshati, how everyone is struggling or grappling hard. So he said the conditions, why, what is the cause of struggle? Why we are struggling? The main reason is false ego. False ego. And Prabhupada gave an example of iron chains, as if bound by an iron chains. Like we are bound by iron chains, then we cannot move around. So he said similarly, everyone is bound up by false ego. And what is the chief driving agent for conditioned soul? So basically mind. So I said mind in goodness, very good. Mind in passion, all troublesome. Mind in ignorance, go to the lower species. So, and he gave quotes from the different Shrutis, two Shrutis. Prabhupada gave quote. What is that? Madhya Dinayana Shruti. That what a person will attain after getting liberation, how he gets a spiritual body. So all these quotes are talking about what is the results of achieving a liberation. And then he said Mamai Vamsha, meaning of Mamai Vamsha, how everyone is fragmental part and parcel of Supreme Lord. It is not a broken material part. It is always Sanatana, eternally a fragmental part. And Prabhupada gives reference to like Bhagavad Gita 2.24, 2.30, that Spirit Nainam Siddhanti Shastrani, and basically he refers to those shloka in the purport. So this is the 15.7. So basically this entire verse spoke about how mind has a power to determine the future of a living entity. So next verse continues this theme, and one more verse is going to speak similar word, in the similar theme only, that it is mind which determines the future of Jiva. Basically, what kind of thoughts he's cultivating in his life, that is determining his next body. So again, 15.8, similar things are going to come. What is how transmigration happens? 15.8. शरीरं यद् अवाप्नोति यच्चापि उत्क्रमात्मीश्वरः गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धान् इवाश्रयात्. Vayurgandha. So how soul is carried to different body. So it says as Vayu carry Gandha, the Vayu carries Gandha. Similarly, it is consciousness or mind which carries soul to different body. Yes, Prabhu. Please read.
Sekar Prabhu, BLN Sekar.
Translation: the living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. Purport: here the living entity is described as Ishvara, the controller of his own body. If he likes, he can change his body to a higher grade, and if he likes, he can move to a lower class. Minute independence is there. The change his body undergoes depends upon him. At the time of death, the consciousness he has created will carry him on to the next type of body. If he has made his consciousness like that of a cat or dog, he is sure to change to a cat's or dog's body. And if he has fixed his consciousness on godly qualities, he will change into the form of a demigod. And if he is in Krishna consciousness, he will be transferred to Krishna Loka in the spiritual world and will associate with Krishna. It is a false claim that after the annihilation of this body, everything is finished. The individual soul is transmigrating from one body to another, and his present body and present activities are the background of his next body. One gets a different body according to karma, and he has to quit this body in due course. It is stated here that the subtle body, which carries the conception of the next body, develops another body in the next life. This process of transmigrating from one body to another and struggling while in the body is called karshati, or struggle for existence.
So the word Ishvara, the Ishvara word which comes, Ishvara word comes is that living entity has, living entity is also controller of his body. Sometimes we say he's not Parameshwara, but he is Ishvara. That because he has power to decide his body. He has power to decide. So Prabhupada says, our present activities are becoming the background of our next activities. So this the famous shloka of Bhagavad Gita. And so Karshati, the meaning of word Karshati. So Karshati is the change of body, the continuous process of transmigrating from one body to another and struggling for existence in the body. This is all strugglesome. So he said this is all meaning of word Karshati. So this is a continuation of that theme. So like, and the analogy is given as an aroma, as the aroma carries. Uh, as air carries aroma. Like sometimes when we travel in the train, and suddenly there is some special occasions come in the train, like in the when the khidki, like when the train goes through a sugarcane factory, nearby sugarcane factory is there, or sugarcane or sugar industry is there, almost everyone puts a handkerchief on his nose. And it is very far. Sometimes the aroma is coming from a very far, the industry is very far, but still this comes. Why? Because air is carrying an aroma. The aroma, the particles are coming into air. So air is a carrier vehicle for this aroma. Similarly, what is a vehicle for a soul? The vehicle for the soul is his consciousness or his mind or the present activities which he's doing, that is preparing. So this is the 15.8. And so so same theme is going to continue in the ninth also, where it will be mentioned that the kind of a quality the mind is developing, it attracts its next growth. So here the analogy came of aroma. In the next shloka, the analogy will come like a magnet. So you can note down. This is a shloka for air. Analogy is the aroma. 15.7 speaks about 15.8 speaks about aroma, and 15.9 compares about magnet. So 15.9 will speak, I think, about magnet only. Let's see what Prabhupada gives analogy there. So basically, process of transmigration, two methods, like air carrying aroma. Second is like a magnet attracting ion. Shrotram chakshusparsham cha rasanam ghranam च अधिष्ठाय मनश्चाय विषयानुपसेवते.
Vibhu Prabhu.
Translation. The living entity thus taking another gross body obtain a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. In other words, if the living entity adulterates his consciousness with the qualities of cats and dogs, in his next life he gets a cat or dog body and enjoys. Consciousness is original pure like water, but if we mix water with a certain color, it changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure for the spirit soul is pure, but the consciousness is changed according to the association of the material qualities. Real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. When therefore one is situated in Krishna consciousness, he is in his pure life. But if his consciousness is adulterated by some type of material mentality, in the next life he gets a corresponding body. He does not necessarily get a human body again. He can get the body of a cat, dog, hog, demigod, or one of many other forms. For there are 84 lakh species.
So here we find as magnet attracts the iron nail, and the quality of our mind, it attracts our next body. And here the analogy actually Prabhupada doesn't give the analogy. It was written as some in my Gita book that Prabhupada gives an analogy here of a water. That originally the water is very pure, but then different colors are added. It appears to be like blue water, yellow water, green water, but the originally water is pure. And based on association, it attracts different color because it becomes condition. So he said because of association of material qualities. So he said, but the real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. So when we say that pure water is Krishna consciousness. So, and Prabhupada is warning us here that don't think that we'll necessarily get a human body again. We may get another body also. So that is Prabhupada is cautioning. So till 11 verse we'll continue this reading, and we'll stop at 11 verse today, because this is entire one section of transmigration. That same theme is continuing till 11th. So why we do not see this change of body happening? So it is because of foolish mentality. It is said only foolish people, even so many bodies are changing, they are not able to see that the bodies are changing. So in the 10th shloka, Krishna is going to speak about how living entity quits his body. And he said, we are only a person who has developed eyes of knowledge, then they can understand this very clearly. So he mentions about this eyes of knowledge here. 10th verse. उत्क्र उत्क्रामान्तं सितं वापि भुञ्जानां वा गुणान्वितं विमूढानानुपश्यन्ति पश्यति ज्ञानचक्षुषः.
Chandrabhushan Prabhu.
Okay, someone can read.
Darshan Bendre Prabhu.
Translation: the foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. Purport: the word jnana chakshusha is very important, very significant. Without knowledge, one cannot understand how a living entity leaves his present body, nor what form of body he is going to take in the next life, nor even why he is living in a particular type of body. This requires a great amount of knowledge understood from Bhagavad Gita and similar literatures heard from a bona fide spiritual master. One who is trained to perceive all these things is fortunate. Even living entity is quitting his body under quitting his body. Certain circumstances. He is living under certain circumstances and he is enjoying under certain circumstances under the spell of material nature. As a result, he is suffering different kind of happiness and distress. Under the illusion of sense enjoyment, persons who are everlastingly fooled by the lust and desire lose all power to understand their mind, change of body, and their stay in a particular body. They cannot comprehend it. Those who have developed spiritual knowledge, however, can see that the spirit is different from the body and is changing its body and enjoying in different ways. A person in such knowledge can understand how the conditioned living entity is suffering in this material existence. Therefore, those who are highly developed in Krishna consciousness try their best to give this knowledge to the people in general. For their conditional life is very much troublesome. They should come out of it and be Krishna conscious and liberate themselves to transfer to the spiritual world.
So beautiful purport. So this 10 shloka mainly spoke about who are the people who continue to suffer. He said these are the foolish people. Why they are called as foolish? Because they do not have gnana chakshu. They are not able to see that they are changing the bodies and they are lacking in the shastric learning. They are not referring to scriptures. So now somebody may question, okay, Prabhu, then how to come out of this foolishness? What is the cure for the ignorance? Simple. The opposite of ignorance is knowledge. So opposite of like those, he says ki anupashyanti. Anupashyanti or na anupashyanti is anupashyanti. So he said how to do that? That is by cultivating the knowledge. So the cure for overcoming ignorance is knowledge. Krishna says knowledge. So we have to be trained with eyes of knowledge. And this can happen when we are regularly hearing and learning Shastra. So Prabhupada, lack of Shastric learning brings about the following result explained in 11. So he said ki the next shloka is going to speak about what is the result of a lack of Shastric learning and what is the result of proper Shastric learning. So those who are doing proper Shastric learning, like all of us are trying to learn, become Bhakti Shastri. So I said if we properly learn Shastra, what is the result we are going to get? 15.11. And then we'll stop for today. This verse, last verse, we'll conclude with today. 15.11. यतन्तो योगिनश्चैनं पश्यन्ति आत्मनि अवस्थितं यतन्तोऽपि अकृतात्मानो नैनं पश्यन्ति अचेतसः.
Devi Prasad Prabhu.
The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try. Purport. There are many transcendentalists on the path of the spiritual self-realization, but one who is not situated in self-realization cannot see how things are changing in the body of the living entity. The word yoginaha is significant in this connection. In the present day, there are so many so-called yogis, and there are so many so-called association of yogis, but they are actually blind in the matter of self-realization. They are simply addicted to some sort of gymnastic exercise and are satisfied if the body is well built and healthy. There are no other information. They are called yatanto api akritatmanah. Even though they are endeavoring in a so-called yoga system, they are not self-realized. Such people cannot understand the process of transmigration of the soul. Only those who are actually in yoga system and have realized the self, the world, and the Supreme Lord. In other words, the Bhakti yogis, those engaged in pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness can understand how things are taking place. Yes.
Yes, bro. So Prabhupada mainly mentioned about what is the important. The two words are mentioned, yoginaha. So yoginaha, the yoga today nowadays, the meaning of yoga has gone very wrong. People want simply gymnastic exercise, but at bhakti yogis are the actual yogis. And somebody has developed, somebody practices bhakti yoga, then he can see things as they are. They can understand. So this was till 15.11. Now we'll be jumping into the next position, 15.12 to 15, maybe next week. So how Krishna is our maintainer. Krishna is the only maintainer, and understanding the position of Krishna, where now Krishna will speak about the very famous slokas, Rasomapsu Kaunteya, Babasmi Shishura, that all shlokas will come here. I am sun, I'm light of sun, this and all. 15.12 to 15.15, this section will come. So we'll take that in next week. I'll just show you quickly one small PPT. Then we'll stop. This is just a revision of what we did. This PPT of Radheshyam only.
Vijay, you will take questions also.
Yeah. So, we discuss qualities of the spiritual world. Natad bhashyate suryo, na shashanko na pavakaha. And how there are 5 types of loving exchanges in spiritual world. Sakhya, dasya, vatsalya. So all spiritual activities are akarma. They are not creating karma. So I said there is a disparity in this world. Someone is rich, someone is poor. Someone is strong, someone is weak. Someone is beautiful, someone is very ugly. Someone is healthy, someone is deceased. So he said, now this should give us impetus. Array, this world is not a fit place. Let me endeavor to go to spiritual world. So, okay. What I wanted to show, I think this did not come in this PPT. 1 minute. It does not come. Just a second. Oh, I think this did not come in this. Maybe I'll get that thing tomorrow. Next week I'll get. There is a very beautiful description about a description of spiritual world, and that was really very good, which I liked it. So I will bring it last next week. Okay. Yes, sir. Any questions?
Very good.
Yes, Roji.
Vijay, last in the last one, no? Sloka, Vijay, 10 sloka. 10 sloka you told Vijay, that we are changing the body. So before 10 you told about the mind, that mind is the cause for changing the body. And in the 10th sloka you told Prabhuji that due to lack of knowledge, this problem is coming. If the knowledge is proper, like Shastric knowledge is proper, then we know that the person will be like a dhira, that we know that what is happening exactly. And the 11th sloka you're telling Prabhuji that Bhakti Yoga is the best yoga. But knowledge should be required to discriminate between the good and bad. And after it will Bhakti Yoga is the best yoga. So the question is this, it is not mentioning here that Bhakti Yoga is the best yoga. So how to understand this? Because knowledge is telling, right? It is not telling that.
Prabhupada is writing no, in the purport. Prabhupada is writing in the purport in the 11th shloka that so-called gymnastic people are taking to the gymnastic exercises there, and uh, and actually Krishna will not again and again refer to this word bhakti yoga, bhakti yoga, bhakti yoga, bhakti yoga. That's why we need a acharya commentary. If we take a shloka in between, this word may not come again and again. But Prabhupada, see, Prabhupada in the purport, he writes there, right? Na? In the 15.11, what Prabhupada writes? Uh, Devotional service, pure devotional service. Again and again he will write. Why? And Prabhupada says, Bhakti yogis are the best ones. So why? Because already it has been discussed before in the previous shloka, 15 point, that only by devotional service, only by devotional service. Then in the result of surrendering, only by, so one should get captured by information. So when it has been already proved before something, then Krishna may not refer it again and again, something which is already proved. Especially a conclusion about Bhakti Yoga, that Bhakti Yoga is the best yoga. So, sorry if I want to understand your question maybe properly. What is exactly your question, Guru?
Sure, Bhaji. So my point is that Bhaji, that Gyan Yogi also have the same knowledge, right? He's not different knowledge. Only that experience is not there because he's not doing the karma. He just have the knowledge. But knowledge is enough to discriminate between the what is good and what is bad. So why Gyan Yogi cannot discriminate that what is good and what is bad?
No, so Jnana Yogis can also
That
do.
is again.
Jnana Yogis can also understand that they are suffering in this world. That is the reason they are doing so much tapasya and they are endeavoring to go to Brahmajyoti. That is the reason that they are endeavoring to get something different. They are at least aspiring for Brahman. That is the reason Jnana Yogis are aspiring for Brahman and all. But still, this knowledge, there still the knowledge because their Shastric learning is yet not very proper. Because if somebody has very properly and thoroughly understood Shastras, ideally he should come to the conclusion of Bhakti Yoga. Why Bhakti Yoga? Because Bhakti Yoga is a yoga of love, yoga of seva. Because Jnana Yogis, their knowledge is also considered incomplete because they're aspiring for something which is not a very stable state. It is still not a stable state. So that's why their Shastric learning is considered to be. But yeah, regarding this shloka, even Jnana Yogis can understand. They also understand that they're changing they are changing the bodies, and that's why they are on the path of self-realization. So the knowledge is sufficient. Knowledge is important.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
One more question is there, Bhaji.
Yes, bro.
I missed it also.
Yes, bro.
The starting you told some point. I forgot actually. And
So
that
you
time I
wrote some
remember the
question before?
question. Okay, Bhaji. Next class I will ask.
Yeah.
Well, in the starting I remember that question, but in the middle of the
Oh, you
class I
asked
forgot.
about, I think, detachment
I
and
will ask tomorrow.
renunciation.
Okay?
What is difference between detachment and
Yes,
renunciation?
yes, that only.
Okay, okay. So next
But
class we'll
sorry,
start
you
with
told
this.
Bhaji that in one sloka.
Yeah, understood,
You
understood.
told in one sloka, in the sixth sloka you told.
Yeah, I
Detachment
remember.
renunciation is required, but
Yeah,
both are
yeah.
looking same.
Okay.
Okay.
So next time we will start with this only. What is detachment and what is renunciation? Okay. जय वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यः वत्सः पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनंतकोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।